Okay, great. Okay, so is it my turn?
Yep.
Fuck. Yes, it's another shitty podcast. 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 Yes, it's another shitty podcast.
Hello and welcome to which episode is this?
Fourth.
Oh yeah, the fourth episode of season 3 of YASP, short for yet another shitty podcast. I am Ali, as usual. With me is Amir.
Yo, guys, and I just wanted to say that we care so much about this show that we lose count of which episode it is that we're recording.
Yeah, it's just so expansive. Like each episode is like a whole experience. Now, we
Yeah.
usually, throughout the third season, have exciting new guests. Today is the exception. We have a boring old guest. Soheil, say hello.
Yeah, hello. Same, old same. Yeah, happy to be here. It's been a hot minute, but I'm
Yeah.
back for an
Yes.
exciting topic. Yeah.
When was the last time Soheil was on our show? Given the fact that we don't even remember which episode of this season we're recording, I'm definitely sure that we would know.
I think it was South Park or Grand Theft Auto, one of those two. I feel like.
Grand Theft Auto. Maybe the second episode of Grand Theft Auto? I don't know. Let me-
Yeah. GTA Part 2 was Soheil and
Bobak.
it was
Yeah.
Soheil. No, it wasn't Babak. It was just Soheil.
Bobak. Wait, Bobak didn't show up for the GTA episode? Are you sure?
Yes, I am sure.
Well, the important thing is here that I'm back.
Yes,
no one
you are.
cares about Bobak, to be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, today, I don't know why we chose this, to be honest. I thought when we were planning it, the third season had just been cancelled, which is why I put it on the list.
The fourth season or the third season?
After the third season, the show was cancelled.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about Final Space. It's an animated sci-fi comedy. One of the few. We are not having a surplus of those right now. And it's a show by Olan Rogers, I think.
Yeah,
Why don't
I think he was
have a-
previously a... Yeah, it is Olin Rogers. It's Olin Rogers, and I think he used to be a comic artist, and he had the idea for Final Space for a couple of years in his mind, cooking up the idea before he got the chance to present it to. And I think he went to multiple,
I think the first episode was uploaded to YouTube. I think the pilot was publicly shared before the show was picked up by TBS at 2018, and then Adult Swim 2019 and 2021.
Interesting. And the third season, is it still on Adult Swim?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. For some reason, I thought it's on Amazon Prime. I don't know why.
It might be. I don't know which online
streaming services it's on.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's because I've pirated the version that is like the Amazon Prime version of it, because the torrent that I downloaded had Amazon on it. So that's maybe why.
Probably. Anyways, it was created by Olan Rogers, which is a comedian, actor, director, writer, producer, YouTuber, all of that shit. He actually, I know this because he actually announced the cancellation of the show on YouTube.
Yeah,
that was good news.
By the way,
he's
it's
also
not
a voice
because
actor because he's like
yeah,
he
yeah.
voiced half of the important characters.
Yeah, and by the way, this is also kind of funny. It's not because the show was lacking in quality or viewership. It was due to the proposed merger of Warner Media and Discovery.
Really? So
Yeah,
people didn't get offended by the shit quality of the third season. I thought
apparently
it was
not.
because of enormously negative feedback that they had to like backpedal on greenlighting this
Apparently
piece
not.
of garbage.
Apparently not. Anyways,
Oh,
so let's get into it. First of all, just the roll call as usual. Tell me, Soheil, how did you get to know this show?
I don't exactly remember, to be honest, how I started watching it. I started watching it a while ago when only season one was out, and I think it was like a couple of shows that just like the season one came out. I think it was Final Space and Disenchantment, and I think another
yeah.
Netflix show. They
Yeah.
all came out at the same time, and I started watching all of them. And out of those like 4 or 5 shows, I really liked Final Space and Disenchantment, and like those are the only two that I following, like watching them as the new seasons
Persons.
coming out. But yeah, that was like how I got into that. I think it was 2018, 2019ish, that year.
2018.
Yeah, like when it first came out. And I specifically love the one thing about Final Space, the cartoon style of it, like the animation of it, and like how they animated it. It
Really?
was, yeah, it looked very similar to a lot of other stuff, but at the same time, it has some things that like uh, felt different to me, uh, which I enjoyed. And uh,
Interesting.
also, I like like a cute character in the show, and like the green floaty thing, the mooncake.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, I liked him as a character. I liked it as a character. So, yeah, that was basically how I got to the show and I started watching it.
I understand that. How about you, Amir?
I think for the most part, I think I and Soheil got to know these shows together in a sense because I remember, like, first of all, I've always had I've always had animated series on my radar, on my watch list, and I've always tried to, like, at least give their first season a try. And it was Disenchantment and Final Space. And Final Space really, like, stuck with me because the first season had almost everything right. Like, I kind of fell in love with it and I had really high hopes for it. Like, because it had a lot of things perfectly put together. And then came the second season, the third season. By the third season, spoiler alert, I'm gonna like rip it apart. I'm gonna like gnaw away at its bones because I think it was humongously insulting and terrible at delivering everything that the first one had. Nevertheless, so yeah, I've always had them under my watch, these animated TV shows, and so I just like downloaded the first season, watched it, and fell in love.
Well, for me, it's almost kind of similar. Like, I was on this very legal downloading website, and I saw, oh, new
Cinema.
show. Yeah, I was like, yeah, let's see what this is. I watched the first couple of episodes, and I was like, yeah, like the main character is kind of annoying, but I like it. Let's see how it goes. By the end of the first season, I really loved it. Now, unlike you, I actually did enjoy the second season, like because okay, it's important at that point. At that point, one of the franchises that I used to follow, Doctor Who, was in a really bad place. It still is until Chris Chinball just kind of fucking goes away. And sort of Final Space became my substitute for Doctor Who. It was like, oh, time stories and like cute things with times and characters that felt like companions and all of that. Then the third season came out, and I didn't watch it until I heard that it was cancelled, and I was like, yeah, okay, let's get it over with. Let's put it in the bin. I watched it, and holy shit, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So I guess the general consensus is that we all liked the first season quite a lot.
I actually loved it. I still do. Like, I think I will go back to the first season. And I wish it was like a one-off thing. I wish they had left it at the top. Like, I mean, I think if it was only obvious, one season.
Yeah, it was sort of obvious that they had more planned because, the time stuff and Bolo especially being introduced in season 1.
But I think we'll talk about this in, let's say, expansively and like in detail. But I think the show got ahead of itself, and I think like the show becomes a parody of itself, but not in a satirical way. Like, it becomes a parody of itself by trying to become sophisticated and cool, maybe? I don't know, but just like by trying to remain edgy and at the top, it becomes a sad caricature of itself, in my opinion.
Okay, let's wait a second. Why do you say edgy?
Not edgy in the sense of like, in that sense. I mean, like, it was something that was different from other shows. I mean, like, it had things that would set it apart from, let's say, Futurama or Rick and Morty or like other cartoon sci-fi sitcoms. And I think by trying to distinguish itself further, or maybe like remain in that specific spot that set it apart, it started doubling down or maybe like indulging itself in certain things that I think the creators hadn't thought about previously. Like a character like Lord Commander, I think they hadn't really thought about how they're gonna develop this character, and I think initially he was just like it was like a parody of other villains. He was supposed to be like this funny thing that has a grand name, but in reality is just like a really inept and impotent villain. And then they actually do make him very like evil and powerful, and it's kind of sad because they're not doing it in a funny and ironic way. They're doing it in a serious way, which is, I'm like, why would you do that?
Yeah. I'm with you. Like, the whole problem with season 3 is that. But before we get there, let's talk about the first season. As you mentioned, the first season feels very like mishmashy, like different pastiches of other stuff. Like, you have Lord Commander, which his name is Jack, by the way, and like he looks like all of those weird big villains of cartoon TV shows, I'm not even talking about animated sci-fi sitcoms, like old cartoon TV shows, like what was the Autobots villains? The big bad guy of Transformers.
Decepticons?
No, Decepticons is the worst.
God damn it.
Megatron.
Let me look. Oh,
Megatron.
Megatron. Yeah, Megatron.
Like he is like that, like always talking. Like the character he reminds me the most of is Doctor Doom, actually, from like not MCU, from Marvel Comics. like over the top and villainous, but in reality kind of goofy.
Yeah,
And
it was a conscious choice. Like, I think they were trying to, like, not trying to, like, they literally planned the villain to be like that.
Exactly. And by the way, this is a Doctor Who connection none of you will care about. Do you know who voices him?
Yeah,
Nope.
I actually like him. It's David Tennant. He's my favorite Doctor.
Yes. 10th Doctor, David Tennant. Mine is Peter Capaldi, but after that it is David Tennant. So, yes, Soheil.
Yeah. And actually, did you know something else? Did you know that Conan O'Brien, who is like a character in the show, did you know that he was the producer for the first season? And
Yeah.
then
Because the first season was in TBS, I think. Like
yeah,
TBS. Conan did a lot of shit for other comedians. Like he did a Pete Holmes show for Pete Holmes on TBS, and then he did Final Space for
yeah, and
Olin
then
Rogers.
I think they gave it up. They gave it up to Adult Swim when the second season came out. I think that was yeah.
But Conan remained. I think his company actually continued the production because I remember I saw the Konako logo at the end of like season 2 and season 3.
I didn't notice
I think
that.
I did too. I'm not sure though. I'll have to check up on that.
Yeah. Anyways, the first season, like you have what I like to call, I don't know how familiar. I know Ami has seen it. So have you seen Gravity Falls?
Yes.
Doesn't Gary, the main character of Final Space, kind of remind you of Mabel?
I think the overall art of the show is kind of reminiscent of that cuteness of that show.
Yeah. But like the
way that the way they animate the limbs and stuff in Final Space is very similar to Gravity Falls. Like for example, the hands don't like the joints. There's not a. It's like a continuous joints in the hands and legs of the characters, and
yes.
it just like it reminds you of that. And yeah, I think the main character is sort of a mixture of Mabel and her brother, which I forgot his name.
Deeper.
Yeah, like he's like he has the stupidity of the Mabel, but at the same time he gets like very brave and can like get like very serious if it's needed. So it's sort of like a mix of those two characters into one person.
And exactly, and this is the strength and the weakness of Gary as a character. Like he is very annoying, consciously annoying. Like he's written to be annoying, quite like Mabel was written to be annoying. But the problem is that whenever he gets serious, the show becomes incredibly melodramatic. Now, in the first season, it doesn't really matter because you're getting to know these characters and like the melodramatic stuff works, like when he meets his father and stuff like that. But by the third season, the melodramatic stuff is the thing that bringing the show down.
I think if I could throw my 2 cents, so to speak.
I mean, dude, you're the co-host. You can't do that.
Yeah, I know. First of all, I understand Gravity Falls, but I was just gonna say, actually, one of the reasons that I grew more and more towards kind of hating the third season is that Gravity Falls is a good show, but it's clearly a kids show, and I, as a 26-year-old, just really can't put up with that kind of narratives anymore. And I think that by the third season, it had become a kids show. But I think even by kids show standards, like Gravity Falls, I couldn't tolerate it myself, but I was like, this is a good kids show. But I think the problem with the Final Space is that even by kids show standards, it wasn't coherent, and it didn't have really a message, or I don't know, it just felt weird. But aside from that, I think you talked about him like transitioning from this goofy person into a melodramatic person. One of the things that I think in the first season I was totally okay with, because the show had like a meta, ironic, satiric, parodical. I don't know how to pronounce it. Parodical, whatever. Like it was parody-esque, and
Yeah. They had a lot of
so for
pastiches to other shows. Like
exactly, exactly.
you had
No, but mhm.
no,
Go
go
on.
ahead.
I was just gonna say that I was okay with a lot of characters not really having a clear background, or like their convictions being built from thin air. Like Gary is supposedly a hero, and he's like a hero in a postmodern way. Like he's a hero for no reason. He's just ultimately, deeply, innately, intrinsically a good person. And I really didn't care. He was just like, he was a protagonist for the sake of being a protagonist in a very postmodern way. But by the third season, him being a protagonist, they're trying to justify his like goodness, like he values friendship. But because the show has lost the ironic touch to it, it just feels extremely cheesy, to the point that I would literally cringe. I would like force every muscle of my face inwards as I was watching it. And I just couldn't finish the third season, by the way. It was too much for my brain. I was
Also,
like, fuck this.
yeah, and
We'll
also
get
I
to
think
the third season.
I think one thing that made this like make much more sense in the first season was that okay, he was basically a prisoner, so he was alone in that ship with a crazy like a assistant that he was just like getting annoyed by it. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
you had like
Kevin.
sort of a you had sort of like a explanation. Okay, so he has this childish behavior because he's just like going crazy. But by the third
yeah,
season, those things are all gone. So he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm like a captain now, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and this happened to my friends, and I'm like rescuing them, and like I found this girl that I really like. This happened." So a lot of things, like a lot of those things that like made sense for him being crazy, is going away. And but he's still exactly the same character. I was like, okay, now it doesn't really make much sense.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And I'm with you, Ami, by the way, that it is like he's the protagonist because the show tells us he's the protagonist. There's nothing that makes him the protagonist other than, well, he's the main character. What are you going to do? Literally.
yeah, yeah.
And that is
But
actually what
mhm.
works in the first season because, like, our main character is so inept, it's so clumsy that he actually like fails forward.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, fails upward. I'm sorry, is that what falls upward?
I don't
I
know.
don't
He
know.
just
That
fails through and uh,
yeah,
accomplishes things through failures and
exactly.
sheer luck.
Exactly, and like that works in the first season because like there is Lord Commander and his big plan, and Mooncake is this heroic and the way you can sort of relate to all of that is because Gary, much like you, the audience, doesn't know what the fuck is going on. But by the third season, it feels like, oh, okay, we lost our last foot in reality. Like, oh, there is nothing grounding this plane. It's just going up. This
Yeah.
balloon.
But
I'm
let's
sorry.
first focus on the first season that I love. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna run through some of the points that like really made me love it. First of all, I think there's a tone of ambiguity in it, in the sense that the show doesn't try to explain everything to the core. The show doesn't like it doesn't fall to the trap of, oh, let me explain why this is this, why this is that. There's some sort of like a mysticism going on, and I like it in a show because it like gives us the idea that the creator isn't trying to appear wise or appear like I don't know, omniscient of everything going on. He is acknowledging the fact that he, like the rest of us, doesn't really know the direction that this show is going to go on. And so there's that. There's also the narrative structure of the show, in that, like, at the beginning of every episode, we see Gary floating in space, gradually dying, and then there are flashbacks. Yeah, exactly. And like the motives, like the visual motives, like we have the cookie, we have, like, there's a certain sense of loneliness in space, which, by the way, me being in love, like my favorite movie of all time is 2001, and the first season feels a lot like that, because it's like it's depicting space as this extremely lonely place, which it is, and the characters is like locked up in this spaceship with one malfunctioning crazy AI that is trying to be friendly, but is so annoying that it's like being a catalyst to the process of his insanity. And then there are like, there's the other part of AI that's literally like HAL 9000, yeah. And he even talks in a HAL 9000 tone.
By the way, that's voiced by Tom Kenny. Did you know that? Hugh.
No, who is Tom Kenny?
He's SpongeBob.
Really? SpongeBob is Hugh. Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. But to finish,
Kevin is voiced by the way, I'm just gonna say the cast a little bit, because the cast is amazing. Kevin is voiced by Fred Armisen.
Again, who is that?
Okay. You don't watch a lot of SNL and Portlandia, so you probably don't know him. But for you, he's Nick's dad in Big Mouth.
Oh, okay. By the way, have we talked about Big Mouth?
No,
have we had yeah. By the way, I didn't like the second season of that either, but that's a talk for another day. Anyways, as I was saying, so there's this, like, the way things unfold throughout each episode, and in the like in the entirety of the first season, like, the viewer doesn't really know. We are presented with this guy floating in space, gradually dying, and then there are visual motives, and then there are names, and, like, step by step, little by little, we get to know certain characters and new places, and, like, it unfolds I think it unfolds in an almost impeccable way. Then there's also the element of, like, meta narratives and kind of subverting the narrative by the show itself. And as I said, like, in a postmodern way, there are references, direct and indirect, to other shows. There are, homages being paid to a lot of great works of arts. And
one thing just about that, like, those scenes that happens at the beginning of every episode, that is just like him, like, floating away. One clever thing that they did was that, like, as it zoomed out, it explained more things that you saw throughout the episode happening, and then the result of that. Oh, this is in the background, or something like. I think he loses his hand at some point. I cannot 100% remember, like, what happened, but you can see that, like, he has, like, a robotic arm, or I'm not sure if he had it from the beginning. Gary, the main character, and like, they did it very cleverly. That, like, as it zoomed out, I was like, oh, it's the same scene, but, like, every time that I'm seeing it, I'm understanding more and more about what's happening.
That's a good point. It's a really good point that I had forgotten about. So yeah, as you see, it's very thought out and fleshed out.
Yeah, it's a classic thing. The first season seems like a labor of love and passion. Like, I have a great story that I want to tell. And second season feels like, oh, these are the stuff that we couldn't do in the first season here. And the third season is, oh, we are contractually obligated to make a third season.
And by the way, by the third season, the show is, like, almost turning into an anime. Like, the narrative structure is identical to that of a shonen, let's say, but a very bad shonen that would have tanked in Japan. Even artistically, it becomes extremely anime-like. And
but
the background stories. Oh my god! Yeah, let's go one by one. Let's go with the second season.
Let's bookend the first season. The reason I think first season works is all of the problems that we're going to talk about in the second season, and especially in the third season, I think are present in the first season as well. Like nothing changed in terms of character development. That's actually one of the problems. The characters are the same. Nothing changes for them. Like Lord Commander is still goofy and villainous, but in the third season you can't understand it because in the first season it's all of those contradictions that's working, you know? It's a lightning in a bottle situation. It only works once. You can only do it once. You can only do once a villainous character that is kind of goofy and stupid and gets foiled by a dumb main character. And like a Deus Ex Machina in forms of Mooncake's power or Bolo being in a cube or all of that. All of these stuff I think are in the first season, but in the first season it works great. Part of it is because of the presentation. As you said, the presentation is far more greater than the subsequent seasons. And part of it is it's fresh. Like, as I said, Gary is fucking annoying, but it's not grating. Like, he is annoying. He gets on your nerves, but he's still fresh. He has some fun jokes. He has some fun moments. So it's sort of just, well, to quote Mr. Todd Howard, it just works.
Yes.
So, what changes by the second season? It's not as fresh anymore. These characters.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, I agree with that. Like, that Kevin guy, the round thing, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, he's a funny character in the first season. And in the second season, it was like, okay, so what? Like, it just like same annoying thing happening over and over again. And and it's me saying that like, I like Gary, like, even in the third season, he's still not annoying to me. It's like, okay, yeah, this is just like a stupid character. Like, that's how it is. But like that, for example, that Kevin character, I was like, oh, no, I just cannot stand it anymore. It's just like doing same thing over and over again. And exactly to your point, that is like in the first season, you're like, oh, yeah, it's actually funny. And now it's like, oh, yeah, I know exactly what you're going to do again in this episode and the next episode. And that just like gets loses all the funny part of it and just like, oh yeah, straight up annoying.
Yeah, the thing I'm mostly thinking of when I say it started in the first season, for me, the thing about the third season that is really annoying, and the second season to some extent, is the melodramatic parts. Like, they are the worst part of the show for me. Like, whenever Gary is like, listen, I know we may not return, but I need to tell you that, like, I have immense respect for you. And it's like, oh, okay, fuck off. And
that's exactly what I meant when I said the show becomes a parody of itself. Because, first of all, those transitions take only mere seconds to happen. So the show starts to feel kind of schizophrenic in the sense that, like, Gary is being an ass out of himself or making funny faces, like literally SpongeBob level funny faces. And then 2 seconds later, he's like delivering this soliloquy that's like supposed to move us and like bring us to goosebumps. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And to be perfectly honest, at times, it feels like the writer or like Olin Rogers probably has this immature thing that he cannot really deal with serious tones and, like, I don't know, tension for more than a specific amount of time. And I'm saying this because I suffer from the same thing, or at least used to suffer far more back in the day. And I would always, when I was having like a very serious conversation with a friend, or I was in a serious situation, I would just try to make jokes and crack stupid jokes, and I would try to, like, through humor, I would use humor as my defense mechanism. And I think he cannot maintain a serious tone in the show for more 30 seconds. He just has to introduce a goofy, stupid, unfunny element to it, and then get back to the seriousness. And that's why I think the first season, because of the ironic tone, and because it's not so frequent, and it's not so the transitory stages aren't as concatenated, it doesn't feel as bad. But by the third season, it's just like in a span of 20 minutes for the episode, you go from serious to funny so many times. It's like you're being slapped in the face left and right, and I'm like, what am I supposed to feel? Even a kid would pick up this inconsistency.
Well, yeah, and this is why I wanted to sort of object to you saying that, oh, Gravity Falls is for kids, and Final Space Season 3 feels like it's for kids. First of all, I don't think it's for kids because too much violence, honestly.
It becomes like a kids show, but it's not a kids show. So it's not a redeeming factor to it. It's a kids show that is full of double entendres and sexual innuendos, and the show doesn't really have a place anymore. It's like in a pandemonium of being a kids show, not being a kids show, being serious, being parody, being satire.
I think you described it perfectly. It's immature.
Yeah. It's just immature and without a purpose.
Yeah, to the second season, I think second season was trying to build the world. Like, oh, this world is so much bigger. And we added new characters. One of them is Clarence, voiced by Conan O'Brien. And there are ideas in the second season that I enjoy. Like that episode when the ship is stuck in a time wall.
Time vortex.
Time wall?
I don't know.
Like the ship is cut in half. Little Kato is on one
exactly
side.
Which part you're referring to. Yeah.
And stuff like that in the second season I think work, but because it is serious, the comedy is wrapped up in seriousness, that is when the show is most like Doctor Who to me. And I'm doubting Amy will see Doctor Who, so sorry folks, we're not gonna have an episode on that. But unless I'll force. But yeah, that's when the show most resembles Doctor Who. But I do agree with you on one thing. You said before we started recording that you're very indifferent to the second season. And I give this to you. I don't remember anything of the second season except those moments that I just said. I don't remember anything.
That's one of the points. It doesn't leave a mark on your psyche, and I mean leaving a mark in a good sense. It doesn't give you something to work with. It doesn't give your brain something to work with as you grow distant of the show. Good shows to me, and good movies and good music is something that always sticks with you. Even after 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, there's something that you're going to remember. But, and the first season is exactly that. The floating scene, the cookies, Kevin, the loneliness, the first meeting with Lord Commander. I'm going to remember all of that. But the second season, as you said, I don't remember almost anything except for a few parts with the time vortex. And
Okay. By the way, I just remembered this. You said the first season meeting with Lord Commander. I remembered the skin thing. When Gary gets inside the skin of the mother of the family.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
such a good scene. When the dad comes out.
Yeah, I remember that. I haven't seen the first season since I saw it first in 2018. It's not go back to constantly. If we were talking about Futurama, I would say yeah, but I watch Futurama constantly. I used to watch it constantly. I watched the first season back in 2018, and that was it. But I remember a lot of it because it felt fresh.
I think I watched it 3 or 4 times, but 4 years ago.
No, I only watched it that one time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a
and you
good
still remember
show.
vividly.
Yeah, I do remember a lot of the scene. The second season for me is mostly like, there is that one episode which is a self-contained episode. Like, it doesn't have anything to do with the other part of the show, the general arc of the show at all, which is why I remember it. But the whole idea of the show, like, I don't remember much. I remember Bolo and Clarence, but that's just because it's Keith David and Conan O'Brien. Of course, I'm going to remember them. It's like that. I remember the Mose Barak from The Simpsons. You know why?
Shoot us.
What?
With the answer.
Oh, it's voiced by Jeremy Irons.
Oh, of course. Why don't I think of that?
Yeah, that's the only reason I remember it. So the only reason I remember much of Bolo and Clarence is because, well, Keith David, by the way, great actor. Let me think of other stuff he's done that Amy might have seen. Oh, we talked about this. In Saints Row 4, he's the vice president.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just remembered. Like, I was just trying to interconnect my neural synapses and yeah.
And Conan O'Brien, which is my favorite talk show host of all time. So, like, I know these guys. That's why I care about these characters, which is a problem. Like, I care about Kevin outside of caring about Fred Armisen, or at least I used to. I really don't anymore, especially after what they did with him in season 3. I care about Hugh outside of caring about Tom Kenny. But no, I don't care about Clarence. And do you have anything to say on the second season?
Not really, and given the fact that we have to wrap up in probably 10 minutes at max, let's go over some of the things, because I think the second season we're almost done. It's just world building, some new characters, trying to expand the universe, trying to give the show some bones, let's say. And by the third season, it tries to become anime, but it fails. It tries to give characters backstories, which are, by the way, the lowest hanging fruits of all time. Like, for making a villain or a good guy, it just gives you 10 seconds or 20 seconds of a flashback. For example, this is going to be a spoiler alert, by the way. Avocado turns from the best warrior of his race to the traitor of that race because Lord Commander tells him, talks to him for 20 seconds. And without any vindication, without any conviction, without any logical reasoning. Yeah,
I was going to say that, they made this gamble to, okay, we're going to gamble on this character. And for example, Avocado, from the first moment of the story, was my least favorite character. And those episodes that he was the most important character, from the things it had with his dad and all those stuff. And at least for me, when he became such came into such a huge spotlight in the show, I was yeah, I don't really care about anything that happens now. And that was sort of the thing that they did in the following seasons. That was just okay, we're gonna take this character and do this series of things, or we're gonna introduce this character and they're gonna become this huge traitor that we thought, oh, they're gonna be such a great character. I'm not gonna ever name it because that's gonna be a spoiler alert. You know it, but
I just think that before you go on, I just think that by the third season, they're just trying to give backstories to everyone. They're in the which one of the things that was the strength of the first season was that the characters didn't really need a backstory. They were what they were because they were what they were. And I liked the show because of that. But by the third season, they're betraying that. They're like going in the opposite direction. They're trying to make every character, like they're trying to make everything a twist. You're gonna be like, did you know this? Get prepared for this. We're gonna blow your mind with this one. And I'm like, oh my god. And every twist, every backstory is literally, it's not even lowest hanging fruit. The fruit is on the ground and it's rotting. And the creators are feeding it to us. They're shoving it in our mouths. And I hated it. I hated it with every cell in my body. I was like, why did you do it to this? I hope I could go back and unwatch the third season.
Well, you ask why did they do this? I have a hypothesis on that. I think Final Space wouldn't have been made if not for Rick and Morty. Like, I don't think I'm being controversial or like that's.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. The reason
at least
we
it wouldn't get the investors like that.
Yeah.
That's what he means.
Yeah.
That's what he means.
And what Rick and Morty did, which we do have an episode on that, by the way, you can go and listen to that. We shit a lot on the fandom too.
Yeah.
Which is, to be honest, justified. Like, the Rick and Morty fandom is really bad. But the thing about Rick and Morty is that you were not supposed to care about Rick and Morty. They were comical characters. And by the end of it, like, you get to know Rick a little bit more. Like, they realize, oh, Rick is getting sad, and now we care about Rick.
Yeah.
Which is not good. Like, I don't think the show did it in a good way. Like, Rick and Morty didn't do it in a good way either. But that's the problem with Final Space. You are not supposed to care about Gary, Kevin, Hugh, Avocado, and all of that. They were pastiches. They were jokes. And then comes the third season, and the story is so far up its own ass and so serious in its own eyes that you need to care about these characters and what is happening to them. And it's too late by that point. Like, we had 2 seasons and we didn't give a shit about this character. So no, I don't care about that girl suddenly becoming a villain and having 2 eyes instead of 1. You know what I mean? You know which character I mean?
Yeah. That was the same character that I was going to mention. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was just saying.
Voiced by Ashley Birch, by the way, which is from another show that I really hate, Mythic Quest. But like Ash, I don't care about Ash, but at that point you need to care, otherwise the show doesn't work. So they do, as you said, the lowest hanging fruit. How are we going to do that? Oh, we're going to give them all flashbacks. We're going to extend their backstories because, and this is the sad truth, their current selves are not worth caring about.
Yeah, I completely agree. And for me, the show is like I was completely done with it by the third season, and I think you said it got cancelled. I haven't read it that it got cancelled because I even heard that it might be getting a 4th season. But
no, it is cancelled. Like on September 10th, 2021, Rogers said that the show was cancelled.
Yeah, so I feel like it was cancelled for me anyway. Like, even if there was a 4th season, I was not going to watch it. Like, there has been shows that I liked even more, and I cannot like get myself to watch them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like the Final Space, I really enjoyed the first season, but after that it was just like meh. It was completely meh. But it's very strong first season.
I'm completely with you. Like, I know when it got cancelled, I was like, oh damn. But at that point, I hadn't seen the 3rd season, so I was like, oh, another show got cancelled that I kind of enjoyed. But yeah, by the end of it, I was like, oh, well, if this wasn't cancelled, it would have been a problem. But by the way, I looked it up, and on April 10th, 2022, Rogers said that the show could be brought back as an hour-long special to sort of wrap up the story. And apparently, Rogers launched a Kickstarter for a short film called Godspeed, which is the name of the character is Goodspeed. This is Godspeed, spawned from unused ideas related to the series. On the first day, it like doubled its goal. So there might be more to the show, but I don't think Final Space is coming back. I'm just clarifying that for people who.
I didn't know about that. And yeah, maybe they can wrap it up. Like, instead of doing 10 to 20-minute episodes, they can just like get a good plot for an hour.
But that's another part. Actually, that's another part of the problem with the third season. It's just fucking convoluted as hell. Do you even remember what happened at the end of the third season for the show to wrap up?
I do not.
Neither do I. And by the way, technical difficulties. Amir has been cut off.
Yes, he has been.
From the call, but I'm pretty sure he couldn't either. Because the show is just so fucking
he
convoluted.
never finished it, so yeah, he doesn't even know what happens because he said that he couldn't understand and tolerate the third season.
Yeah. Like, it's just fucking convoluted. The thing about Rick and Morty that works in that the convolutedness of the world that they live in never comes as an overarching arc. Like, Rick and Morty does not have an arc. There is no end point. There is no story to wrap up. But Final Space is going towards an end, and like the lore and everything around it is just so fucking convoluted. And it's not fun to explore because, again, it's a comedy, so you can't explore it seriously. I can't do what I did with Elder Scrolls, which is a reference to our last episode. I can't do what I did with that and go ahead and read more about the world of Final Space because the show doesn't treat it as seriously, because the show counts it as a joke. It was supposed to be a joke, and then it got serious.
Since I couldn't get back on my other account, I was listening to what you were saying. I just couldn't talk. I did. I have
to say,
this expression.
Very
and
I feel
expression.
Like there's going to be in mind. I'm hoping you're going to remove it from the podcast, but I had to leave the house because I'm late for work, so it's going to be windy outside and probably going to be rain noise, so I'm not going to talk a lot.
Oh, that's okay. I'm just gonna say one last thing, and then we're gonna wrap it up. I was just gonna say that I did watch. I didn't watch I watched like until the 8th episode. It has 13, but there's this expression, Farsi expression that one of my friends uses. It's called moskesh, which is like dragging the mouse on you know how you can scroll through the episode or like any video file and like with utter disinterest. And I did that, and I watched the end of it. Like I watched the 5 last minutes, and I was like, I saw the progression of the events that transpired, and so it ends on a cliffhanger, and I was like, oh my god, I didn't know it got canceled. I was like, oh my god, this shit continues. And then when I heard that it got canceled, I was like, thank God. Well, but I mean, an hour special that wraps things up. I think it's a good thing for the fans of the show or people that give a shit. Not one of them.
That's
I'm not gonna
the problem, though.
bother with.
That cliffhanger. Do you remember anything from it?
I do, because I watched it like 2 days ago.
Like, what happens to the world? What happened to the Kevins? What happened to the whole Titans thing?
I think the biggest thing, I don't know the details because, as I said, I just dragged the mouse. But I think the biggest thing was that like they kind of unleashed that Invictus, was it called? Like the
Yeah.
ultimate villain. So it got unleashed. That's it. Like, and he got
And
mooncake.
yeah, she, I think it's voiced by
No,
a
Invictus. By the
woman.
way, Invictus, the voice acting, oh my god, it was terrible. I was like, why the fuck would you do this? This is this is even this is like kids playing D&D. This is like I don't know, 16-year-olds playing D&D, trying to role play.
Yeah, it's voiced by Vanessa Marshall, by the way.
Yeah, it's a terrible voice acting. Like I
Yeah, I'm
wouldn't put
with
that
you.
on my resume.
But anyways, that's Final Space. It's done. It's over.
Fuck Final Space. Love the first season. Hate the third season. There aren't that many shows that I get to hate so much. And I hate it because the first season was great. If it wasn't, I wouldn't have hated it so much. But like, I just hate it when something gets ruined and obliterated. And because there's a lot of potential lost. Or maybe like the potential was only for one episode, one season. I don't know.
That's the thing. That's the thing that makes it hard. Was it like a lightning in the bottle, or if under a more competent team, this show could have gone on well, like Rick and Morty.
Um,
I don't
well,
know.
it's a question that remains to be answered.
Yeah, but anyways, this
We'll
show
have to
is.
wait for the other creations of Olin Rogers, if that ever becomes a thing, to see if it was a one-off thing or
I
like a
mean,
one-hit wonder.
he's done other stuff. I think so.
No, like if you can get something through the like until the oven is hot, if you could like stick something inside it and that
Okay.
oven is hot. I don't know.
And this is I didn't know this like literally until now. And I'm gonna. I mean, are you? Can you see the chat?
With chat, let me see.
I've posted a link. I didn't know this until literally right now. There's a game.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that either.
Final Space: The Rescue, and
Grab
it's a
game,
VR
2nd
game.
February.
Yep.
Oh, okay. The Final Space universe has expanded to VR. Join Gary, Avocado, Nightfall, and Tribor as they embark on a brand new journey to rescue their dear friends from the clutches of a new but familiar threat. And it's
It came out this year, by the
€8.
way, after the cancellation.
Are there any? Let's see.
Reviews. The reviews
Yeah,
are positive,
positive.
but like, I mean,
It's shy of 2 hours long. It says one
Well,
of the
you should
reviews.
reviews. It only has 19 reviews. It's not like that it has been played by that many games. I don't think it's even paid for the man hour that went into it to like create that game. It's
Yeah.
not
yeah,
like that it got a great sales or anything. And to be honest, there are platforms and there are specific studios who um, created these kind of games once, and now they can easily offer it to other games, like other TV series and stuff. Like if you noticed it over the span of like past 2 years, every famous TV show has a mobile game, and they
yeah,
Yeah.
literally say like you can tell that it has been okay. This system has been built once, and now there's a Rick and Morty game, there's a Family Guy game, there's a
yeah.
American Dad game, and like all of them are like, okay, this is the exact same thing that these other guys made, and we're going to do the exact same thing and make it. And it's the same. Like there's a like Justin Roiland himself. I think with his characters and his stuff, I think he has 3 VR games, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
all of them
also
are
One
back,
of them
by the
was
way.
just recently announced, High on Life.
yeah, and they're all similar. Like they're very similar.
He
Yeah.
literally uses his Morty voice on everything.
Because
literally on everything.
Because we talked about this before on our very first episode of YASP. Justin Roiland is a one-trick pony.
Yeah. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, and by the way, we need to talk about Rick and Morty again at some point when it finally fucking ends. And
yeah.
But yeah,
which is not going to be anytime soon.
Yeah, sadly. Rick and Morty gave way to a lot of shows, including Final Space, and there are a lot of them nowadays. This is what I wanted to sort of touch on. And Final Space managed to, I think, trudge along for a while before being destroyed by, honestly, its own hands. Like, I don't think, like, for a lot of stuff, I can't blame other people. For Futurama's end, I can blame Fox for fucking it over.
Yeah.
But for Final Space, like, I know it was cancelled literally because of a merger, but the fact that it got to a point where I was okay it being cancelled, it's its own fault.
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually glad that it didn't continue. But with that, I think we need to finish this episode.
Yeah.
So our usual motto, which is like, see you later unless we die or don't feel like it.
Yeah.
And also, if I can just like thank you for having me. Just like I'm just gonna have one thing for people. If I don't know, I think if someone is listening to this podcast, they probably already watched it. But if they didn't, I strongly suggest the first season. It's a really, really good show. And unlike the second or third season that ends on a cliffhanger, the first season has an ending, so you can just watch it as a one-time thing and just enjoy it and think it has been done. And it's
that's actually something
technically it does have a cliffhanger ending, because like at the very last second a light shines on Gary on space, but
he got rescued and lived happily ever after. That's like what happened.
It reminds me of a show that I used to like, which is a very bad show, by the way. Like, I don't recommend anyone see it, which is Alphas, which was the Heroes clone. Does anyone even remember Heroes?
Nope, I don't even know what it is.
One episode and I hated it. That was it.
Yeah, Heroes was sort of like a proto superhero TV show, I guess. And like Alphas was a clone of that, and it had David Strathairn, which I love. But yeah, that show like got cancelled on the cliffhanger, and there was a joke that in Big Bang Theory where Sheldon calls the showrunner and says, "What was your plans for the end of it?" And then he listens to it and is like, "Oh, that's terrible. You should have been cancelled."
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, I guess with that, thank you, Soheil, for being with us. And despite my jokes, it's always a great occasion to have you here. Hopefully, we will get tired of our new guests and have you more back. There is a Persian proverb that you are a nomad bazaar.
Exactly, yes.
Which is basically yes, which translated roughly means that when there is a new mate in town, the old ones become repulsive.
Not repulsive. That's a really strong word.
Okay, and Soheil says that he does need to go, and we both have to go as well. So with that said, we'll see you next time, unless we die or we don't feel like it. I'm not gonna tell you what is our next episode because we need to still
we don't
talk
know
about
it
it
ourselves.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. We want to thank you for listening to our shitty podcast. Yeah, It's another shitty podcast. We are deeply happy inside, and you don't have anything better to do. Don't waste your time here with us. Yes, yet another shitty podcast. Another shitty podcast.